Stress and stressors come in many forms, and sometimes we are faced with certain types of stressors so often that we may become seemingly unaware of them, or maybe it may feel like we're numb to them, but in reality they are there and they continue to add stress into our experience. Today I want to talk to you about sensory stressors. So when I bring up the idea of sensory stressors, I'm talking about things such as sight and sound and touch and smell and taste. This is part of our everyday experience. We have five senses. Most people have five senses. And even if you have fewer than five, you continue to have a sensory experience of the world around you. And sometimes those experiences or those particular sensory stressors can be overwhelming. They can be too much. And as a result, they can add to your stress. Think about if somebody were to sit next to you and if they were to start poking you on the arm or on the shoulder. Maybe the first couple of times you would be able to ignore it or shrug it off or not let it bother you. But if they kept doing it, it could become annoying and eventually it could become stressful. Same thing with noises or smells or things that you taste, things that you see. If you were to be in a room or in an environment with flashing lights that never stopped, that's a certain amount of stress on the eyes and the experience of that sensory perception that you are now living as part of that, being part of that environment. So it's important to pay attention to begin with. Let's start by paying attention to what sensory stressors are part of your reality every single day. So think about what your day looks like, what it looks like at home, what it looks like at work, what it looks like out in public, in the places that you most frequently visit or spend time in. Maybe it's a friend's house or family's house or a public venue or just out in the street in your neighborhood. Is there a lot of visual stimulation? Are there flashing lights? Are there a lot of things happening? Do you have to keep track? Do your eyes have to keep track and change focus and follow things, follow movement, follow all different kinds of cues that are visual cues? What about sound? Are there a lot of sounds? We live in the world of alerts and alarms and all kinds of beeps and dings and rings and buzzes and buzzers, all kinds of sounds that can really be quite wearing, quite taxing on the senses. And again, what about touch? If you are in an environment where your sense of touch is overly taxed, overly exposed, the things that you are forced to touch are harsh or harmful or unpleasant, that can be very taxing and very stressful. Things such as smell and taste also come into play here. If you are in an environment where there is that assault on your smell or taste senses, that can be very taxing, very difficult to process over long periods of time or in large quantities. So it's so important that we start by being aware. What is your environment like? And that's not limited to one environment. Everywhere you go every day, what are those sensory experiences like for you? And what can you do to lessen the effect of any sensory experiences that are not beneficial to you, that are potential stressors to you. One thing that you can do is to avoid them. Any sensory experiences that are detrimental to you, avoid what you can avoid. Sometimes we can't avoid everything, so we can decrease our exposure to those things. So maybe if you're in a loud place, you can wear some kind of ear protection. If you are in a place where there's toxic fumes or bad smells, perhaps you could, if you can't leave that area, perhaps you could wear some kind of a mask, some kind of a filter that allows you to not breathe all of that in. If you're in a place that is difficult and stressful on the eyes, take breaks. Maybe wear an appropriate pair of glasses that would take some of the strain off of your eyes. So you have to, after you identify the stressors on your senses, you have to work towards eliminating and reducing as much as possible of what is stressing out your sensory experience, your sensory perception. After that, to take it one step further, you can also mitigate some of those detrimental sensory experiences, those stressors, with things that are on the other side of the spectrum for you, things that would be pleasant instead. So, for example, the experience of sight. If you are working towards eliminating visual stressors, perhaps you can add into your environment the things that you find visually relaxing, visually pleasant, visually pleasing. Maybe your favorite color can be incorporated into your environment. Maybe you can have pictures of loved ones or beautiful scenes of nature or whatever brings pleasure to you and relief and relaxation to you in terms of those senses. So again, visual, or maybe if it comes to auditory, your ability to fill your environment with maybe white noise or relaxing music or nature sounds or whatever it is that will help you to take that sensory experience to the next level. Remember, identifying, removing, and reducing, and then replacing or supplementing with things that are pleasant, things that are good, things that will help you to relax and enjoy your environment, enjoy the sensory experience. Things such as aromatherapy for the sense of smell, or tasting something that you enjoy. Now, I'll say this, be careful not to get caught up in the loop of stuffing yourself with comfort foods all the time, because that can backfire before you know it. But a little bit can go a long way. And remember that we can also seek stress relief through textures, whether that means touching something that's soft and silky or warm, or petting your dog or your cat. Things that help you to respond differently in terms of all of your sensory experiences can take you from being stressed or being exposed to too many stressors to balancing your experience with more pleasant, or at the very least more neutral sensory experiences. So remember that you don't have to be a victim of your sensory experiences just because of the world that you live in. Maybe it's loud, maybe it's smelly, maybe it's overwhelming, but there are things that you can do. And again, start by identifying, work on reducing and eliminating, and then replace or supplement with things that are actually pleasant and help with your stress reduction. The last thing I want to bring up in this video goes beyond our 5 senses, and that is the experience of information. We all are subject to potential information overload. We live in a world of technology, in the world of social media, in a world of constant news that is available to us on a 24/7 basis. It's critical that we identify all the information that is coming at us, eliminate and or decrease as much as possible. Be on the lookout for the toxic stuff and replace and supplement with things that are good for you instead. And again, don't get caught up in binge watching things or getting hooked on things that take over your life in other ways. But if it means switching off the news and watching something that makes you laugh instead, then do that. Take the 15, 20, 30 minutes to do that. And again, don't make it a binge situation, because then you're subjecting yourself to a whole other set of issues. But get yourself out of a situation that's toxic, that's detrimental, and try to replace and supplement with something that can truly help to lift your spirits and reduce the stress in your life. Remember that you do have the power to influence your environment and your experiences. Take the time to create a personalized plan of sensory experiences for yourself in such a way that will benefit you, that will help you to reduce the stress in your life, to reduce the stressors in your life, and to help you manage stress more effectively. If you'd like to learn more about a comprehensive approach to stress management, check out the links below.